Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's start today's lecture. So, as we are continuously discussing about the role of nanotechnology in various human diseases, so today we are going to discuss the role of nanotechnology in diabetes. But before discussing the role of nanotechnology in diabetes disease, we have to understand about the metabolism and specifically about the glucose catabolism. So if we can understand glucose catabolism, then we can understand the development of the diabetes disease. So first of all, what is metabolism? So in simple terms, if you could describe the metabolism, metabolism is the all chemical reactions that occur in living cells and that are responsible for the integrity and that are responsible for maintaining the living state of the cells. So this is metabolism. And metabolism is broadly divided into the two categories. The first one is the anabolism, and the second one is the catabolism. And you have learned repeatedly about these terms, anabolism and catabolism, in the in your junior classes. So I can define in simple terms that anabolism are those metabolic reactions that are responsible for the synthesis of the larger molecules, and those larger molecules, they are synthesized because they are required for the proper functioning of the cells. This is why they are synthesized in the body by the anabolic reactions. While the catabolism are those metabolic reactions that are responsible for the breakdown of the larger molecules into the simpler ones. And why these larger molecules are broken down into the simpler molecules? Because cells required energy. Cells need energy in order to perform their various functions. So this is why the larger molecules are catabolized. The larger molecules are actually broken down into the simpler molecules, and this process releases energy in the form of ATP. So you might have learned in your junior classes about the glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, the tricarboxylic acid cycles. So all these catabolic reactions are actually responsible for the glucose catabolism. And these pathways are responsible for the release of energy that is required by the cells. So actually, glucose catabolism ensures the release of energy that is required by the cells. But the problem is glucose, which is a 6 carbon molecule, and this is the simplest form of the sugar that is required by the body. And if you talk about the autotrophs, we, the human beings, are not autotrophs. So if you talk about the autotrophs, so what autotrophs do, that they actually synthesize their own glucose. So you are well aware of the process photosynthesis. So they prepare their glucose through the photosynthesis for their cells, and then they use this glucose in order to release energy for their various metabolic functions. But what is the case with the human beings? Human beings are not actually the autotrophs. We are the heterotrophic organisms. We we cannot synthesize our own food. We are dependent on the food that is synthesized by the other organisms, and then we intake that food into our bodies. So what happens that we actually take the glucose from the outer sources. So we eat the carbohydrates and we take the carbohydrates in, and this carbohydrates, if for example they are the complex carbohydrates, they are then broken down into the simpler carbohydrates, and the simplest form of the carbohydrates is glucose. So this means that whenever the heterotrophs have to get the energy, they have to consume the carbohydrates, and then they have to process these carbohydrates into the simpler carbohydrates like glucose, and then this glucose catabolism is responsible for the release of energy. So what happens in glucose catabolism? Glucose, being the 6 carbon molecule, is converted into the simpler 3 carbon molecule, and that you are well aware of the pyruvic acid. So pyruvic acid is then is used to release energy. So this is the simplest glucose catabolism that I have explained. But the problem is, whenever there is a malfunctioning, whenever there is a problem in this glucose catabolism, there arises a disease which is called as diabetes. So actually diabetes is a disease that is directly linked towards the malfunctioning or the problem, or any kind of misregulation that happens in the glucose catabolism. So that directly is linked towards the development of the diabetes. Okay, so now we are coming towards the diabetes. As I have already explained that this disease is directly linked towards the glucose catabolism. So diabetes could be defined as a disease in which the body's ability to produce or respond to the hormone insulin is impaired, and this results in the abnormal metabolism of the carbohydrates and elevates the levels of glucose in the blood, right? So now I can explain this definition, that what happens that in our bodies or in the bodies of the human beings, in the cells of the human beings, what happens that there is a hormone that is called as insulin, and this insulin is actually responsible for the glucose metabolism in the human bodies. So if what happens that there would be a malfunctioning in this insulin hormone, either it is not produced in the cells, or if it is produced, what happens that it is unable to normally catabolize or normally metabolize the carbohydrates, and this ultimately develops a disease which is called as diabetes. In this disease, what happens that glucose levels are increased because this glucose is unable to be catabolized into the simpler molecules, and in order to release energy, and its levels in the bloods are increased, and this is now called as a disease which is called diabetes. So diabetes is further then divided into the two types. There are two types of diabetes, and you know about these types. You might have learned, you might have read about these types of the diabetes. So number one is the type 1 or juvenile diabetes. So type 1 or juvenile diabetes is a type of diabetes in which what happens that the human bodies are unable to produce the insulin. So there is a complete stoppage, there is a complete lack of the synthesis of the insulin in the cells, which is called as the juvenile diabetes or type 1 diabetes. Now, if this condition is developed in the human, or if type 1 diabetes is developed in the humans, what happens that the human beings or the patients are now directly they need the external sources of insulin. So you are well aware of the fact that some of the diabetic patients, they need a continuous injection of insulin from the outer sources. So this is a type 1 diabetes, and this means that the human bodies are now not able to not able to synthesize the insulin hormone, which is directly responsible for the glucose metabolism. So this means that we have to now inject this insulin hormone from the outer sources or from the exogenous sources. So in order to maintain the proper functioning of the glucose metabolism, and then this condition is called as the type 1 diabetes. And sometimes what happens that the patients that are in severe condition of the type 1 diabetes, that they need an injection of insulin multiple times in a day. Then the second type of diabetes is called as type 2 diabetes. Now, type 2 diabetes is a bit different as compared to the type 1 diabetes. In type 2 diabetes, what happens In type 2 diabetes, what happens that the human bodies are able to produce insulin. There is not no stoppage, or there is no lack of production of the insulin in human bodies. Human bodies are able to produce the insulin in type 2 diabetes, but this insulin is unable to properly regulate the glucose metabolism. So this is then called as type 2 diabetes, and this is the most common type of diabetes that exists in most of the patients, most of the diabetic patients. So in type 2 diabetes, insulin functioning is actually is not normal, and that is unable to properly metabolize, properly catabolize the glucose in the blood. So these are this is all about the diabetes and its types. Now we are coming towards the causes of diabetes. So although scientists believe that there are various unknown causes of the diabetes that exist, but some of the factors that are responsible to develop diabetes in patients are known. So we can discuss those factors that are directly linked towards the development of diabetes in various patients. Number one are the genes. So diabetes may be a genetically linked condition. So this means that certain races or certain tribes or certain people living in specific areas, they may be more susceptible to diabetes disease as compared to the other areas. So maybe certain tribes, they are genetically linked to diabetes, or certain races, they are genetically linked to diabetes. And this means that there are some genes that are directly linked towards the development of diabetes in patients. Number one. Number two, there may be the environmental factors. Number one are the genetic factors, and number two are the environmental factors that may cause the development of diabetes in patients. And in environmental factors, scientists believe that viruses might be responsible to develop the diabetes. So certain viruses might be linked to trigger the diabetes in the patient, and there are some other factors that might also be involved in the development of diabetes in patients. Then number three, lifestyle. So our lifestyle is directly linked to, our lifestyle might be directly linked towards the development of the diabetes. So certain people have a very lazy type of a lifestyle, or very strange type of a lifestyle. So there are chances that this abnormal type of a lifestyle may be linked towards the development of the diabetes as compared to the healthier lifestyles, or as compared to the normal lifestyle. So our lifestyle should be very normal, should be very near to the nature, in order to avoid ourselves from the diabetes. Then another factor that might be responsible of developing the diabetes is certain medicines. So scientists believe that certain medicines, or the extensive use of the medicines, might also be involved in the development of the diabetes. So scientists believe that if we could avoid those medicines that are known to that are thought to develop diabetes, that we can avoid diabetes. Then we are coming towards the nanotechnology, that how nanotechnology could have a potential in the treatment as well as in the monitoring of the diabetes. So like as we have already discussed in the previous lectures, that nanotechnology could play its role in various human diseases, and we have already discussed about some of the diseases. So now we are going to discuss how nanotechnology could provide some tools, could provide some devices that could have a potential towards the treatment as well as towards the monitoring of the diabetes. So number one is the nanorobots. So you are well aware of the word robot. Robot is actually a device that could function exactly like human beings, right? You could take a controlled type of benefits from the non-living robots. So nanorobots could be injected directly into the bodies. They could be placed directly into the bodies in order to monitor and treat the diabetes. So how this happens that these nanorobots are actually the nanosensors. So they could be, these nanorobots are the devices. Those could be, those could be, uh, uh, those could be coated with some nanosensors. And what these nanosensors would do that once they are embedded in the bodies, they would then monitor the glucose levels in the blood, and then they would produce a signal to your cell phones, and they might also produce a signal to your smartwatches. So this means that the troublesome process or a tedious process that we face nowadays towards the monitoring of the blood sugar, and that is directly pricking the blood out of the bodies, and or taking the small samples of blood out of the bodies and then monitoring the blood sugar levels. And this, is you know is a very tedious and a very troublesome process. And specifically, if you talk about those patients that need to monitor their blood sugar levels daily multiple times, then what they do is they then prick out their blood multiple times in a day, and they then measure the blood sugar levels. And this is a very, I mean, very painful process. This is a very tedious process. So in order to avoid this troublesome, in order to avoid this pain, nanotechnology in the form of nanorobots, those could be embedded in the bodies. What they do, they would continuously monitor the blood sugar levels, and they would produce a signal, they would produce a measurement of these blood sugar levels to your cell phones or your smart watches. It means that you do not have to prick the blood out of your bodies. You do not have to go through that tedious or that painful process. Uh, you can monitor your blood sugar levels whole day by just placing the nanorobots in your bodies. So this would be a potential application. This would be one potential application of the nanotechnology in future that could make much more advantageous process of monitoring and treating of the diabetes. Then number two are the nanosensors. So we can also devise some nanosensors that could, I mean, that could, be worn anywhere in the body. And the function of these nanosensors would also be to monitor continuously the blood sugar levels. So how these nanosensors would work, that these would actually be in a shape of band aid devices. So if you look at this picture here, you see that these band aid devices could be worn anywhere in the body. They could be pasted anywhere in the body. So once they are worn anywhere in the body, what they do is they would automatically take small blood samples or small fluid samples that exist underneath the skin of the human beings. And by taking these small samples of the fluid from the skin, they would then able to monitor, they would then able to measure the blood sugar levels, and they would continuously give a measurement of blood sugar levels digitally. So this means that this would be a very easy and very painless process of just wearing these band-aid devices to your bodies and continuously monitoring the blood sugar levels throughout the day without pricking out the blood from your bodies and then going through these traditional painful processes. Then number three, we can also use polymer nanocomposites. So polymer nanocomposites could also be used in order to monitor or in order to treat the diabetes that are responsible in order to treat the diabetes. So how they functions that we can bind the sugar sensitive proteins, and we can also bind the insulin molecules directly to the nanopolymer. So this means that we can manufacture or we can make nanocomposites by binding the sugar sensitive proteins and the insulin molecules directly to the nanopolymers. And then we can inject these polymer nanocomposites directly underneath the skin. So what would be the benefit ultimately? The benefit would be that the sugar sensitive proteins, they would sense the blood sugar level in the bodies automatically. And then they would release the insulin in a very controlled fashion to the blood. So this means that the traditional injections that we are giving nowadays, the traditional insulin injections that we are giving nowadays, and that could be in a multiple times in a day. So these injections could be avoided then. So we can we can inject these polymer nanocomposites directly to the skin, and they would then sense how much sugar is present in the blood and how much insulin is required by the blood, and they would automatically, in a very controlled fashion, release release the insulin to the blood. So this would be a very automatic process, and it means that the multiple injections that we are now giving in a very painful process to the diabetic patients, these could be avoided, and we can even inject we can inject these polymer nanocomposites once in a day, and they would monitor and release the release the amount of insulin that is required by the blood. Then the fourth tool is the tattoos for diabetes. So you are very aware of the word. You are well aware of the word tattoos. So tattoos are actually, if you look at this picture, this is a tattoo. So people make the tattoos on your skins, and they are very fond of making the tattoos. So these are the traditional tattoos. Now we can also make the tattoos that are made up of the nanomaterials. And the function of these tattoos would be to monitor the blood sugar levels, in a very painless process, in a very digital fashion. So how they would work that these tattoos are actually the polyethylene glycol beads. So polyethylene glycol beads are then coated with fluorescent molecules. So the purpose of coating of fluorescent molecule with the polyethylene glycol beads is just to measure the amount of fluorescence once they are released into the skin. So when they are coated with the polyethylene glycol beads, they are then injected just beneath the skin with a needle, just exactly in the same fashion as we make the tattoos on the skin, right? So when we inject with a particular needed, when we inject these polyethylene glycol beads coated with fluorescent molecule just beneath the skin, what they would ultimately do. So the function of these polyethylene glycol beads coated with fluorescent molecule is to measure the amount of fluorescence with a particular device. Like we can use a laser, or we can use a light emitting diode in order to measure the particular amount of fluorescence that is being produced. And why this particular amount, or why the why the measurement of amount of fluorescence is why this is important? This is important because this amount of fluorescence that is being produced is directly linked towards the change in the blood sugar level, right? So as much as the change in the blood sugar level happens, there would be a change in the amount of fluorescence that is produced. So in this fashion, in this way, we can directly link the amount of fluorescence by measuring this amount of fluorescence to the blood sugar level, and we can directly monitor the blood sugar levels in a very painless way throughout the day. And that would be very easy, that would be very efficient as compared to the traditional technologies. So thank you very much, students. This is all about today's lecture, that how nanotechnology could be used in order to monitor the malfunctioning in the catabolism of the glucose that causes the disease diabetes, how nanotechnology could develop some applications, potential applications in future, and how nanotechnology could develop some very efficient tools in order to monitor and treat the diabetes. So thank you very much. Now, if you have any question, you can